once I did that dive, and it was my first real connection with, the creatures of the reef. I was like, so what else can it be there? Like, if I saw that, what else can it exist? And that moved me into starting to create my own animals. And I went from this very imaginative state of creating animals and making stories for them and giving them names and, all of this movement of creator, to every time that I dove, I started to understand more how brutally amazing the reality really is. And then I started to step away from imagination and into what was really there. And then once I understood what was really there, you cannot understand what's happening. So my realization that the ocean or the reef itself is dying came at such a degree that I could not just go back to inventing things. I needed to talk about reality because I was so in love, so bewildered by this system that I didn't even know it was possible to exist. Then when I found out the reality of the existence and then the fate of that reality, my work shifted completely because of that. So I even got to a point in 2015 that I could not work because I was doing illustrations for so long, from 2006 until 2016. For 10 years, I was existing as an artist that does illustration. So I would draw with Indian ink on a vellum paper that is kind of like texture of skin in a way, but like fabricated. I don't know if you know what vellum is. And I got to a point where I was like, well, I mean, this drawing is not enough. This is not enough to me. Like, now that I understand what is coral bleaching, what are the effects of plastic pollution, and that was back in 2016. Now it's even worse. Then I started to, study ocean acidification, and all of these studies, it was me interfacing and looking for answers in the internet, and going through NOAA's archive, going through National Geographic's archive, going through the IUCN Red List archives. It was a self-thought because I don't know, I didn't want to go to biology university. It wasn't, that study was in relationship to create art. And I felt like the idea of studying those topics by myself would actually lead me into making that shift of my practice. Because every now and then I feel like what I'm doing is not enough. And lately I've had that shift, and that's why I made that work that you saw in Hollywood, which differs in a way from my previous installations and my previous works. So there are always thresholds in my practice that leads me to a state of understanding that the work that I'm doing is not enough. And how can I portray this or take this to a next level, or seriously invite people to understand what I've been studying for a long time? So once in that year of 2015 where I stopped and I was like, this is not how I want to approach this anymore. Like, drawing is not taking me anywhere. It's just people are buying my drawings and telling me that they're beautiful. This is not what I want out of my art practice. I know that I make beautiful things, but I make beautiful things because nature itself is so magnificent and gorgeous that they are already beautiful. But I need to talk about, the destructions that we're inflicting in the planet, and how come that's so accelerated. So then from that, I started to do a bunch of critique groups in Sao Paulo with different curators, different artists, so that I could, enrich my mind and understand what kind of medium and where would I go to create that impact, and stop and not do it with drawing. And then that's where sculpture came into place. And that's where the scientific method became even more more important and more acute in my research than anything else.